We are back, and you are listening to the Critical Hour on Radio Sputnik. I'm your host, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein will meet with Trump allegedly on Thursday. We initially thought that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein had verbally submitted his resignation to the White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. An Axios source said Rosenstein was expected to be fired, so he planned to step down. We now know that, at least for now, that's not the story. So to get some insight into this, we turn to my next guest. He's a journalist and writer for citizentruth.org, Carmine Sabia. Welcome to the Critical Hour.
Hey, Wilmer, thanks for having me.
So, Carmine, help me out with this part of the analysis first. There was a lot of time and mental horsepower spent on this story early this morning by the networks, only to find out, at least for now, we won't have a story until Thursday. So a whole lot of folks ran with this early, and then it wound up at this point to be, I'll say, all sizzle and no steak. Your thoughts?
Correct. This, I guess, goes back to when people on both sides of the aisle really complain about fake news. And it's just really a matter of rushing a story. It's not fake news. It's a matter of rushing a story sometimes. That happens in the journalism business. And I think you had a situation where you had people on the right who were like out for Rosenstein's scalp and they wanted to rush the story. And then you had people on the left who were like, oh, this is a Saturday Night Massacre. And it was a juicy story for both sides. I think that's why it took off like wildfire. But from what I'm hearing from people on the Hill, from what I'm hearing is that Rosenstein actually verbally did offer his resignation and that Kelly did not accept it, and that told him that President Trump wanted to meet with him.
So at least for now, this is a matter of a lot of people on either side being more interested in getting the scoop than getting the scoop right.
Correct.
Now, to the issue of the verbal offer the verbal offer of resignation, in listening to all of this banter back and forth between the major networks and then reading stories in some of the more prominent magazines or papers, it seemed as though I would say that Kelly asked for the resignation and that Rosenstein said no. And
that's the other story.
And the logic being, there's a difference in terms of how he gets replaced depending on how he leaves or is removed. That if he is fired, then Trump has a lot less latitude in how Rosenstein gets replaced as opposed to if Rosenstein tendered his resignation.
Correct. There is a matter of if that's the case and if that's what happened. There is a matter of if Rosenstein resigns, President Trump can basically stick anybody who's already been approved in the cabinet position into that spot. But if he is fired, then you have to go through the confirmation process in the Senate, which is going to be World War III.
Exactly. And whether that takes place now or whether that takes place after the midterm elections, it's going to be a tough row to hoe.
And I'm not really certain what would happen to the Mueller investigation if Rosenstein, who is overseeing the investigation, is out and nobody's in. You know, I'm assuming that the next in line would take that spot, but it's really murky waters.
Well, you're right there. And the other thing that I find interesting is that if Trump were actually going to fire Rosenstein, seeing that he's apparently doesn't like to fire people face to face, it makes more sense that he would have had Kelly do it today than wait to come back from the UN on Thursday and fire him face to face on Thursday, because from all previous indications, Trump does not like to do this face to face.
Correct.
It works on television. It works on TV.
It's interesting because he got famous doing it.
Right.
But that's not a real firing.
There we go.
That's not a real firing. This is a real firing. He's loath to do that face to face.
So what are your sources telling you about this whole story and what's really on the possibly on the horizon?
what I had heard earlier in the day was that he had offered his resignation. Kelly said President Trump wants to meet with you. That Rosenstein had overshot and over anticipated how angry President Trump was at the story in the Times about the recording him. And my understanding is that President Trump is not really overly angry at that story to the way Rosenstein thought he would be, and that Rosenstein, essentially President Trump wants to get the word from Rosenstein. What was that about? Was it a joke? Was it, you know what I mean? Were you serious? Now, is he going to get the truth from Rosenstein is a whole other question. I mean, what would you say if you were Rosenstein? So I don't know. But I've heard both stories. I heard your story and I heard my story. Now, on the crux of your story, which is that President Trump wants to meet with him and that Kelly asked for his resignation and Rosenstein wouldn't give it, then what I've heard about that story is that President Trump is going to try to pressure Rosenstein into doing it on Thursday, try and persuade him into resigning on Thursday. I'm not buying that story. I'm buying the first story I heard, that he offered it and Kelly said that Trump wanted to meet him.
And why aren't you buying the first story?
I can't say, but for who I heard it from.
Okay.
Who I heard it from is why I believe it. So that's why I'm more apt to believe the story that he offered it. I believe he did offer. I really do. Yeah, it could be wrong. It could be wrong. My source could be wrong, but that's what I believe right now. It's a reliable source. So then let me ask you this, and from your base of knowledge, not asking you to jeopardize any source. If Rosenstein did in fact tender his resignation to Kelly, why wouldn't the administration accept it? Because that would seem to be, I'm giving you what you've wanted for the last 6 months. It does seem weird, right?
I mean, that's analogous to me to begging a woman to go out with me, and then when she finally says yes, I say, never mind. You're not that cute anyway.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
More than once.
More than once. It does seem antithetical to everything he's wanted. My guess is President Trump likes to schmooze people. And I think he's taken this as an opportunity to schmooze Rosenstein. I think that could be a severe misjudgment on his part.
Wait a minute. Schmooze him. When you say that, you mean, so he doesn't want Rosenstein to quit. He wants to schmooze him into resigning.
I mean, no, not necessarily into resigning.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily into resigning.
Then schmooze him into what?
Maybe being more on Team Trump.
Okay. So he wants to schmooze him into signing the oath of loyalty.
Kind of like, hey, Rod, I believe you. I'm on your team. You know, we got to work together, man, against this deep state and, and all this stuff. And I think, it could be a mistake on President Trump's part. Rod Rosenstein is a career guy.
Right.
He's not going to do favors for friends. He's a career guy. I think he's a good guy, honestly. I have high regard for Rod Rosenstein.
Okay.
So, I also have high regard for Robert Mueller. So I think that the investigation has to continue. I think it's not good politically. It's not good even on the world stage to have a situation where Rosenstein is fired, where the Mueller investigation is stopped without a conclusion. I think that would be a nail in the coffin of the presidency if this investigation is stopped or hindered in any way.
So this is more of Donald Trump always thinking he's the smartest guy in the room.
Now, listen, I want to be honest. I know you're not. I'm a fan of the president. I think I'm a fan of some things of the president.
Wait a minute. How do you know I'm not?
I heard.
Oh, okay. Well, you heard correctly. Your sources are accurate. Go ahead.
Okay. I heard before I came on the air.
Okay.
I'm a fan of a lot of things. I'm not a fan of the tweeting and the juvenile stuff. Be that as it may. Like I said, I think the investigation has to continue, man. It has to reach a logical conclusion, because if you don't, if this investigation is stopped, it so appears then it looks like you're hiding something. If you're not hiding anything, then the investigation has to continue. And if the investigation is stopped or hindered in any way, then you're even going to have somebody like me going, maybe you're hiding something. So, I think you have to let it go. I think firing Rosenstein is bad on every level.
I would agree with you, and that has nothing to do with how I feel or don't feel about the president. It has everything to do, and let me say to you, and you can take this back to whoever you talked to and said that I don't like him. I am honestly, as a political scientist, I am honestly more concerned about process and being sure that things are done correctly and constitutionally than I tell people all the time, I'm not a political operative. I'm a political scientist. And I am more concerned about things being done correctly. And I don't mean ideologically from a political perspective. I want things done right.
I'm with you on that. I'm sure you know Joe Walsh, I would imagine, very well then.
Well, I know of him, yeah.
He's a guy like that, too. Joe Walsh is a guy like that, too. And he's a friend of mine. And we butt heads over some stuff. But I think we agree on things like that. And me and you and him, we all agree on things like that, that things have to be done in a certain way properly. And, you have to do it the right way. And it starts to look Nixonian if you start doing stuff like this. So, and then you have even guys, like I said, like me, that would abandon ship at that point. So, if he resigned, it's much better.
Now, it's interesting that you say that there would be people jumping ship because that has been said so many times up to this point. Oh, this is the final straw. Oh, that comment is the final straw. Oh, and you don't see a whole lot of, you see a lot of folks getting fired. You see a whole lot of folks under investigation and leaving because of that. But what you don't see are a whole lot of people just throwing their hands in the air and waving them like they just don't care and walking out the front door.
You must be from my generation.
If not older. Go ahead.
I think, you're right. Listen, he could fire Rosenstein and Mueller tomorrow, and the people who, are the hardcore, the base, the InfoWars guys, they're not going to abandon ship. But you're going to have people like me who are, pretty firmly encamped in Team President Trump that are going to say, no, that's a red line for me.
Okay.
For me.
Okay, so so continued, please, because I'm glad you've said that, because I'd really like to know, for loyal supporters such as yourself, where are these red lines? Because he hasn't seemed to cross them for a whole lot of folks.
He's crossed them a few times for me, but not to the where I'd abandon ship. Red lines of things that made me angry.
Such as.
Oh, God. I mean, the tweets are a big thing for me. It's just not something. I mean, I think it's different. I was not a fan of President Obama's policies. Let's be straight up about that.
Okay.
But as a man and a person and a human being and a father and a husband, was a fan. And so when you go from that, the way he did diplomacy and the kind of the nice way to talk, because President Obama could tell you where to stick it in a very nice way with a smile on his face.
And you'd stick it there gladly because he convinced you to do so.
Yeah. So you have to kind of get that. And to go from that to super blunt, in your face tweet storm guy is very difficult for people psychologically.
So is the issue for you the mechanism or the process of tweeting, or is it the content of the tweet? Or both?
Both. I mean,
okay.
It's both. For me, no, I don't mind the tweets. I mind how the tweets are worded. And what I would say to President Trump, I always said this, I always told people close to him in the administration, he should hire me. I was like, his tweet button, when it tweets, it should go to me. I'll reword it in political speak, say the same exact thing he wants to say, and then I'll tweet it.
But that goes against, when you look at and we could dicker with the numbers, whether it's 37% or 42%. But when we look at those core hard line Trump lovers, they say he's saying exactly what I want him to say, but I can't say it. He's speaking to me. So if he if he filters it through you, then where does that leave that 37 to 42% of the folks that won't abandon ship?
They're going to be on board anyway. But look,
okay.
He doesn't need to listen to me. He won the presidency. He won the presidency doing things that made me cringe. So, and against everything I would say on Twitter to him during the primary, he's like, why are you doing that? Why are you saying that? Don't say it that way. And I was wrong.
So you don't believe that
he was right?
You don't believe that most Mexicans are rapists, and you don't.
I don't think he does either. I don't think he believes most Mexicans are rapists.
Well, that's what he said.
That's not what he didn't say. Most Mexicans. He did not say that. He said Mexico.
He said Mexico. He said Mexico sends its worst people over here. They send rapists. They send thieves. And then he said, but some of them are good people, I guess.
Well. Again, he doesn't have the way to say it. What I would say to you, or to the people, if it was me talking, is Mexico has a long history, undeniably long history, and you could research this. It's not enough that you can get into it in 2 minutes on radio, but you could research this. Mexico has a history of absolutely steering their criminals towards the border. Most Mexicans who do cross the border are good people looking for economic relief. But Mexico, the government, has traditionally had a way to sneak their criminals across the border, the criminals they couldn't handle, and give them to us. That has happened.
And then I would have to ask you, then what are those criminals doing once they get here? Because the data shows that the Mexican immigrant population commits less crime, almost, I think, down to the least amount of crime of all folks in the country.
Correct. That's why I said most of the people crossing the border are good people looking for economic relief. It's absolutely not most of the illegal immigrants that are committing these crimes. It's absolutely not most Mexicans. They do send some criminals here. The Mexican government does push to have some criminals here. But the majority of the Mexican people crossing the border are good people like you and me trying to make a living, trying to live in this world.
We got about a minute and a half left, so let me get Carmine Sabia's projection or crystal ball look into the future. What's going to happen on Thursday when Rosenstein meets with the president?
Oh wow, Thursday's going to be a busy news day.
Yes, it is.
I think a couple of things are going to happen on Thursday. They're going to overshadow Rosenstein, and I think you'll see those possibly happen late at night on Thursday, but we'll get into that some other time. I think Rosenstein's out. I don't know how it's going to happen. I think Rosenstein's out. It might not be Thursday, but the seeds will be, the steps will be planted. The seeds will be planted on Thursday for that ouster. I don't think it'll happen on Thursday, though. I don't think it'll happen on Thursday. I think on Thursday they come out of that meeting all smiles, but the writing's on the wall for Rosenstein. I think anything that happens to him, if it's going to be a firing, it's going to happen after midterms. Let me stop you there. And Carmine, I really appreciate your conversation. I really appreciate your analysis and you're coming on board. Thank you. And I look forward to getting you back on the Critical Hour. I really appreciate it, Carmine. Thank you. I had a great time, man. God bless you. Have a great show. Same to you, Carmine. Thank you.